Hi everyone, welcome to this podcast on writing articles and leaflets for the GCSE English language on the WJEC board, but this can be used for any of the GCSE boards. This particular video is on articles and leaflets, but if you look at my videos, I've done one for every type of writing. So this is Charlie Brooker, who we're going to look at an article later on in the video. So one paragraph definition. So I got all of my students to do this in the lessons, so you should have this in your notes, but my definition is: it's a piece of writing included in a newspaper or magazine. It's not going to be the headline news, but it's going to be a discussion on a topical issue. So as I'm speaking now in early May of 2015, it could be about the election, but it's normally aimed at younger people, and it's often with a particular point of view. So most of the time, 99% of the time, the exam question tends to be a magazine article on within your school or college. So that means that you're going to be aiming your article towards people your own age. So you need an engaging headline. You need a hook which grabs the reader's attention from the first paragraph, so in the first couple of lines. Draw on personal observations and observations. Draws on personal experiences and observations, makes the reader think, and concludes by drawing the main points together into a clear overview. So I've said before with a few of these speeches and things like that, that the intro and the conclusion should perhaps mirror each other. So if you're speaking about a particular image in the intro, maybe go back to that in the conclusion. So what makes a bad article? The inclusion of pictures and columns. So in your article, in your exam, I don't want anyone to be drawing a picture of anything like that and referring to it. In theory, you could say, if you look at the image below, but I don't want you to draw anything. If you do refer to a picture, you don't have to draw a box, you don't have to do anything. Columns, some people, because they think it's a magazine or a newspaper article, start writing in columns. So I don't want you to do that. So just write on the piece of paper, just all the way across your A4 as normal. Undeveloped paragraphs, so your paragraphs must be full and detailed. Writing which doesn't take account into the audience. So if you're writing a magazine article for people your own age, you're going to use different language as if you were writing a formal letter to the council. Vice versa, if you're writing a letter to the council, you're not going to speak and you'd be using slang and language that's probably more associated with your age group. Unselected or random detail, so you've got to keep on task. An uninteresting written tone. 99% of the exam questions I see, they use words like lively to describe the article that you're going to do. So you've got to try to make it interesting for the examiner to read. So 5 tips for better articles, basically just summing up. Begin with a catchy, memorable headline. Make the opening short and interesting. Have 3 or 4 central paragraphs which are linked and developed, so you should have 1 point per paragraph and develop it. Then finish with a short but insightful conclusion and proofread your work. Here's a typical exam question. Your school college has organised a campaign to improve the health and fitness of staff and students. Write a lively article for your school college magazine with the title Keeping Fit and Healthy. So like I said before, it's normal for your school, which it is here, and they put here lively article, and you should write a page and a half. So like on all the other things I've said to you, think about your POW. So your purpose of this one, of an article, is to inform and entertain. So we know it's to entertain because of the use of the word lively in the question. So it shows us if it's meant to be a lively, it's meant to be interesting, then you've got to entertain the reader as well as inform them. So your audience is, fitness is going to be staff and students of your school college. So you should make it chatty and informal because of this, and do not alienate, e.g. sick. So what I mean by this is that a particular words or language, young people might see it differently from an older person. So for example, if someone your age would say, I'm going to a particular club or a party and it's sick, that means it's fantastic, you really want to go there. If think about the examiner being a generalisation of a 65-year-old man or a woman, they might think of sick as being something that's bad or unwell. So that's also linked in with the language. So you should be informal, you should be using your DeForest, you should be using your spamo, which is similarly personification, alliteration, metaphor, onomatopoeia, and you should be using your hyperbole as well, so that's exaggeration. So your layout, blank, so that means I'm going to talk about it in a sec. Okay, so what did the examiner think? Who the hell cares? Well, in a way, we do care, so we want to know what he thinks. So, I'm writing this article, this girl says, and this is what happens if she says that. whack. So if you say I'm writing this article, this is almost like what the examiner's going to do to you. It shows again that you are a D grade student if you write that sort of thing. So please try not to start your article with that phrase. So to sum up the examiner's comments, you need to have the correct purpose, audience, language and layout. You need to maybe show both sides of the argument just in one part of your article towards the end. Detailed paragraphs and linked paragraphs, so this means starting your paragraph with on the other hand, simile, in contrast, finally, firstly, so using connectives. Correct spelling, punctuation and grammar. All these things equal good grades. So how do you make your article interesting? There's a few ways. So here's a little pie chart that took me about 7 hours to do. No, it didn't. I copy and pasted from someone else. But if we go around the pie chart, direct address, so making the reader feel like it's directed at them, using the word you. Alliteration of the headline, repetition of the sound. Emotive language, change in punctuation and use different punctuation and sentence lengths. Mirror your intro, which I talked about earlier on. Hyperbole, exaggeration, rhetorical questions. So this is all of DeForest and Spamo. I've just picked out a few here. So here's a plan that I've given you all in the lessons, or you can print it off if you screenshot this video. So it's the format of your article. So it's got your headline, intro, main body, conclusion. So here's another question that I want us to look at. Write an article in which you argue that the elderly are to blame for today's problem. So it's quite a tricky question. It wasn't on our exam board, so don't worry about it, but that's the question we're going to look at. So thanks very much to Mr. Bruff for letting us use these resources. So this is basically the structure that I want us to look at. So first of all, alliteration has been used in the headline. So from this, we could write loads of different things to do with that exam question, but we know from this alliteration, the repetition of the P, pensioners pollute, we know from that where the article is going. We know that it's going to be talking about the elderly have caused pollution in the world. But also, it's short, it's catchy, it may want you to read. It probably wouldn't get someone your age's attention. Maybe someone older, 50 or 60, would maybe read this and think, oh, that's quite interesting. But the main thing about the headline is it uses alliteration, uses that language device to catch the reader's attention, and also tells us a little bit about the article that's going to come. Okay, so the second part of the form of it is that of the article is that you've got your headline, and I want us to look into the first 3 lines. So the first 2.5 lines, as current surveys show, 75% of old people hold young people responsible for today's problems. Andrew Bruff suggests today's youth are not the key offenders. The elderly had the planet ruined before they arrived. So there's a few interesting things. One is the use of DeForest, so 75% uses statistics. There's also emotive language, so offenders. The elderly of the planet ruined, so ruined and offenders, you could argue, is emotive language. Also the use of a semicolon, so straight away this writer is showing the examiner they know how to use a semicolon. So make sure you remember here that semicolon goes between 2 sentences that are linked. But the main thing I want to talk about with the first 2.5 lines is that here, this subheading, this intro, summarises the complete story in a 1 paragraph. So in your articles, your first 2 or 3 sentences or first 2 or 3 lines or your opening paragraph should almost try to grab the reader's attention, and this is done through using DeForest, but also almost tells us what's going to come in, almost like a spoiler for the rest of the article. So you should try to do that in yours. So here's back to our exam question that I've already talked about. And here's 2 examples of a headline that I came up with. So this one, fanatical about fitness. So I've looked at the exam question and I thought, well, what can I use alliteration? I think it'd be really good for you to try to think of a title of alliteration for your article. And the other one I've done is top of the fitness class. So the first one uses alliteration, and the second one is a pun, like a play on words. So maybe sort of a famous phrase or a memorable phrase at school could be "you're top of the class." So I put fitness in there, almost top of the fitness class. So to link the fact that it's a college campaign and it's about health. So if we go back to article form, the 2 things you've got to remember how to set out your article is 1, you need a heading, which would be great if you use alliteration, and then 2, you need a subheading, which is a paragraph or 2 or 3 lines, almost summing up or giving a spoiler to the reader about what's going to come up in the next few paragraphs. So going back to our plan, there's our headline, there's our plan, and then the rest of it is just 3 or 4 points that you're going to make in your article, 1 point each paragraph, and you're going to elaborate on it, and then your conclusion to summarize your article and maybe finish in a memorable way, or you can link it back to what you've talked about in your intro. So if we look at an A-star article, I'll let you please pause it now if you want to read through it. All the green things are DeForest. So we went through it as a group and we said, it's fantastic they use some of these devices, please pick them out for me. Okay. So I've already sort of talked about the semicolons before. So where are the semicolons? So the writer has used one in the first paragraph and in the last paragraph, almost saying to the examiner, look, at the start, I know what I'm doing, and then leaves him, the examiner, with the thought of, yes, he knows what he's doing, he's used one at the end. So remember, semicolon is just a punctuation. Instead of a full stop, or instead of a connective, you can put it in between two sentences that are linked and make sense on their own. So here is the DeForest. So, pensioners pollute, alliteration, 75% of old people, statistics. Bruff suggests today's youth, opinion. Look around you, so almost making the reader feel like you're personally speaking to them, direct address. What are you on this side? Here we've got a few rhetorical questions. An insane, insatiable desire, so you could have a motive and alliteration because it's insane and insatiable. Then we've got power of free here. I care about the environment, I care about pollution, I care about recycling. So power of free makes it interesting. Again, we've got another statistic, an opinion here. We've got alliteration, a big beast that guzzles. So big beast is alliteration. They're comparing a car to a beast, so that's a metaphor, and it's very emotive. It doesn't just drink fuel, it guzzles fuel. So here we've got a lot more opinion and emotive language. The use of the word selfish is a motive. Then it says here, we are not the homeowners. I can't quite read that. We are not the homeowners, the car drivers. We are not the homeowners, the car drivers, the consumers. Power of free again. What do we do? Rhetorical question. They crucify nature. They don't just hurt nature or stop nature. They crucify it. Very emotive. The music, TV, the internet, power of free, and then it ends on an opinion. This article is really well written, and it doesn't have any sense of the person's just trying to cram in the DeForest. So in your writing, you should try to make yours A-star level. You should try to make it like this, using DeForest all the way through, start, beginning, and end. Do it, do it. So that's what I basically just said, okay? So there's no point us learning all the DeForest techniques. The mocks I've had in so far is they've been very well written, have got C's, but to go up that band, to get up to the A's and the B's, you've got to use the DeForest. There's no point us doing it in the lessons, and when you get to the exam you think, oh, I'm not too sure. People tend to be using rhetorical questions as they're the easiest one to make, but you have to have confidence in yourself. You know all these, you can use them, so just do it. You can do it. This will get you high marks. Here's our mark scheme again. Out of 20 for each question, 13 for how you write, 7 for spelling, punctuation and grammar. If you use your DeForest, this is where you can get a range of stylistic devices, ambitious vocab, only available at band 4. Okay, so here's your article checklist, which you should all have a copy of. If you haven't got a copy of this, I would suggest emailing me or writing this down. Everything you need to write your articles. We've got the plan. We've got the introduction, we've got lots and lots of tips, we've got connectives, spelling, your punctuation you should be using, your question, and then your DeForest. Okay, so quickly just look at the tips. Plan your DeForest, your own range of punctuation, try to alliterate the headline, use your connectives, link your paragraphs, and the paragraphs should be different lengths. Interesting opening and closing, not I am writing. Make sure to create fact, statistics and quotes. So remember I said you can make up your quotes. Make sure that if you're informing or advising or trying to persuade, you do that. Different sentence starters, please. You can begin with an adjective, begin with a word ending in ly or ing. Okay, here's Charlie Brooker from the first page. Here's an interesting, and this is basically an off-the-wall way of doing an article. His is the hell of nightclubs, and he uses, if you read his work, he uses lots and lots of DeForest, and it's very interesting, very bit out there, but very, very well written. So feel free to have a read through that and try to find these things. Okay, so now you should have everything you need to do these articles. Any problems, let me know. That's the end of the video. If you use all of these tools that I've given you, you can really go up those grades and get something that you could be really proud of.